This episode is sponsored by Free Market Kids.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Orange Hatter. Today, you're listening to part 3 of my conversation with Lindsay.
I think just really understanding this idea of sound money and what it means for my future has been what's like drawn me into Bitcoin.
So, if we play a game and we go back in time to a year ago or a year and a half ago, and the person who sat opposite you on your first date was not that person, it was somebody else, and he wasn't buying a house with Bitcoin, can you go back to that moment and then think forward and see how differently your life, or maybe just your mentality or your mental state, would be different over the last 18 months and then also going forward? We're just doing pretend here.
Super interesting thought experiment. Wow, there's no telling where I would be. I don't think that I would have found Bitcoin like on my own. Maybe I would have, but there's no telling when that would have happened. So even though that relationship didn't, work out romantically, I'm still so grateful that it introduced me to sound money and put it on my radar because when we met, I was just still in a big transition from travel nursing to, returning to Nashville to put down roots. I had just gotten out of a long-term relationship that didn't work out. And so I was just kind of recalibrating everything in my whole world of like, okay, I'm in my mid 30s, I'm starting over, I'm back in Nashville, what, just trying to put the pieces back together. And so I really don't know. I don't know what my life would look like, but I'm glad that I don't have to know that.
So it sounds like Bitcoin has changed a lot of things for you. Looking forward, what will you do differently now that you are fully convinced that Bitcoin is a thing and Bitcoin is hope?
Yeah. So number one, it's still on my to-do list to consolidate all of my different like retirement accounts from all of my different employers throughout my nursing career. But so I need to do that. But I think just putting every dollar that I can into Bitcoin, once I get all the monthly bills paid and, get things in a little bit better order. I've heard people at the meetups talk about just buying Bitcoin, doing dollar cost average. And like I bought some Bitcoin a while back, and shortly after that it went down quite a bit, and that was discouraging, not gonna lie about that. And I was like, oh, I had only waited a couple weeks to buy, but Bitcoin has recovered, and that feels good. But the whole time, I'd be talking to other people about it's hard not to feel a little bit discouraged about that. But the point was that I'm a hodler. I'm not in it for like the short term. And so like this dip that's happening is like inconsequential. It feels like it is consequential, but it's really not. So I think and then like when Bitcoin started coming back up, I was like, oh, I should have bought more when it was at the lowest point. And so just basically whenever I don't buy Bitcoin, I always regret it. So I think just continuing to try to stack sats, as they say, stay humble, stack sats. So that's kind of what's next for me, just continuing to like put my money where my mouth is, literally.
Yeah, definitely. It's if we're a hodler, and for those of you out there who don't know what that means, it's just sort of it's a fun Bitcoin term which just means holding. So you're holding the Bitcoin, you're not trading Bitcoin, you're buying it to preserve wealth and not to trade it to try to gain the market price change. I mean, dollar cost averaging, that's the most, I would say, emotionally neutral way to go, because then you don't have to try to catch it when it's low and try to, benefit from when it's high. You're just looking really long term. So that's really cool. Any last recommendations for women who are still sitting on the fence? And maybe you can reference your love of the moon.
Yes, I do love the moon. it's a full moon today, actually, as we are recording this podcast. So there's like a phrase in the Bitcoin community, like it has to do with Bitcoin going to the moon. And basically that just is referring to the price of Bitcoin in dollars just going to infinity, basically. And that's kind of when all of us like hodlers will be like vindicated or whatever. My thoughts for women who are on the fence, I would just encourage you to listen to someone that's smarter than you are about it. And there's so many people out there that are so generous with their knowledge. And, I don't know if this approach is for everyone, but I think there's something to be said for having like a childlike faith. I trusted what I was learning about Bitcoin because I had already, vetted this person I was talking to, and I trusted their intelligence and knowledge. And so that's kind of what made it easier for me to open my mind to Bitcoin. That was just my experience. And that's not how I've learned, everything that I know. It hasn't been from that type of process, but that's how it was for me in Bitcoin. It's just that, okay, I'm hearing these people who I can tell are smarter than me talk about why Bitcoin makes sense and why it solves XYZ problem and why it is really, especially what it means for people in developing countries. Like it was easier for me to accept like what I was learning about Bitcoin because I could just tell that what the information that I was hearing was like credible. So find some credible sources, I guess, to learn about Bitcoin and just have the conversations, buy some, and then put it in cold storage, which is something that I recently did. So yeah, and even just that experience made it more tangible, actually, transacting with it, even just bringing it into conversations. Like I had a guy come to my house to do some pressure washing for me, and at the end I'm like, okay, how can I pay you? And he was like we were talking about like Venmo or something, and it was like I was like, well, or I can pay you in Bitcoin. And this guy was really surprised. I don't think he expected that to come out of my mouth, but we had a little conversation about cryptocurrency that day. But yeah, just I would say just spend some time learning about it. It's not too late. It might feel like it's too late, but I really think it's a worthwhile investment of your time to learn about it, to learn about, why the dollar is maybe not what you think it is, and see what happens.
And what was that thing you were talking about, the hormonal cycles? I would like to go down that rabbit hole a little bit.
Yes. Well, I guess just briefly, I'll just say, yeah, the female hormone cycle, it really closely mirrors the moon cycle. We've got, four distinct phases, and they all cause us to express ourselves differently and to process things differently. And there's a rhythm to it all. And yeah, I'm really passionate about like women's health and just being our freest feminine selves that we can be.
Okay, so to follow that train of thought, are you saying that how I feel, maybe as a pre-coiner, like I don't know anything about Bitcoin, how I feel about Bitcoin might change during different times of the month, just as any other new concepts might seem to me?
I think that's definitely possible. Yeah, I think that's possible. Like I can only speak for my own experience, but I just have different perspectives on things in my life at different points in my cycle, being honest here. It's generally better to either make or not make certain decisions at different points throughout the month. So, yeah, I think definitely taking a stab at learning about Bitcoin in all four phases of your cycle could help you have a more well-rounded journey.
I love that because I know some days, like same subject, I will feel really hopeful, and then I'll feel like I hate it. And I'm like, why am I bothering with it? And then maybe it's not so bad. Like for sure, I can feel myself, like the conversation in my head, being different during different times of the cycle, as you said.
I mean, that's our biology. And I think that we do ourselves a favor when we kind of surrender to that biology and stop like fighting it. I know my life got a lot better when I started paying attention and, really caring for my future self by either scheduling or not scheduling certain activities or workouts or meetings, like depending on where I would be in my cycle for those occasions.
See, our conversation can go anywhere, and it's okay. We have to be women. Women have to be women.
We have a unique experience in the world. I think that we were created to just process information differently, and I think that that's a strength. And I think we need men too. I think they have, their perspective on economics. I think someone that you interviewed recently was kind of talking about how traditionally men were more financially literate, and that's still the case in our society. Like the finance industry, banking, even the Bitcoin meetups is predominantly men, and so I think we can learn a lot from them, and I think they can learn things from us too.
That is so true. I think we need both. And one isn't better than the other. We're just different and we complement. Thank you so much.
Yeah, sun and moon. I love it.
The sun and the moon. There you go. Thanks for joining us today and learning with us today. If the discussion with our guest resonated with you and you would like to dive deeper into the world of Bitcoin, don't miss out on joining the Orange Hatter Women's Reading Club. The meetup link is in the show notes. Also, if there are women in your life whom you think would both enjoy and benefit from learning more about Bitcoin, please share Orange Hatter with them. Until next time, bye!